Hello, I'm Janise Smith, and it brings me great pleasure to be your moderator along with Dave Hardy. We are here for the great all-day debate in Scarborough. It's a public forum intended to connect the community, residents in Scarborough with the candidates so that they are able to get a few of their questions answered, allowing them to make an informed decisions at the polls on October the 22nd, 2018. I would like to welcome at this time our candidates. The first person I would like to introduce is Priyanth, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Priyanth Nallaratnam.
Priyanth Nallaratnam.
I wasn't even close. I wasn't even in the right ball game. I apologize for that. And then the next person that we have is, I will let you introduce your.
My name is Michelle Spencer.
Michelle Spencer, thank you. And then we do have Emery Warner. Thank you. Okay, so thank you guys for coming. I should say that we cannot do this without our sponsors, and this sponsor or this debate is brought to you by 747 Auto Parts, 4 locations to serve you better, one right here in Scarborough located at 24 Lawrence Avenue East, is giving you the right choice with the right price. So now it is my duty to let you know how the debate format is going to unfold. The candidates will make an opening statement with no interruptions. They will then be given 2 questions that we, Dave and I, have prepared and have given to you in advance. The next set of questions are by our audience member, in which I would like to welcome them here at this time, at this debate. They were given an opportunity to submit questions when they came into the debate. Each candidate, all you guys, will receive 1 minute to answer all of the questions. Once that's done, you will have an opportunity to have closing statements. But I should mention before the closing statement, you have 2 rebuttal cards on your table. You will have an opportunity to rebut any of the questions that your opposing candidate has answered. If you do not use that, it will be added to your closing arguments, and then we will say thank you and move on to the next. So without further ado, I say let the debate begin, and we'll start with you.
All right, icebreaker. So my name is Priyanth Nallaratnam. I'm running as a candidate in Scarborough-Guildwood. I'm here to put Scarborough first. Let me tell you why Scarborough needs to put first. I've been growing up in Scarborough since I was 14 years old. I moved to a lot of places within Scarborough. Now I'm currently in Scarborough Golf Club Road and Bremerton Road. Throughout the years growing up in high school and going to university, I've seen Scarborough neighborhoods being ignored. Whether this is the Scarborough subway or the city services or recreational programs, I never had the opportunity to access these, and so were my fellow young people, the younger generation. So growing up, meeting all these problems, crossing these obstacles, I finished public policy. I worked with various organizations. I worked with community organizations. I worked with unions. And today I'm here to put Scarborough first, to bring subways into Scarborough, and to ensure Scarborough neighborhood is safe and our kids have a safer neighborhood to live in.
Thank you. Michelle?
So many people have asked me why I chose to run for council, and my answer is simple. Representation matters. When I look at our council, I do not see faces that reflect the diverse nature of our city. I do not see people that could possibly understand the lived experience of so many in my community, but what I do see are people that have had many years to effect change on our side of Yonge Street and have failed to do so. Our ward deserves effective representation. Ward boundaries have changed, and now is the time for our council to change. And as your councillor, I will ensure that the voices of the residents of Scarborough-Guildwood are heard and no longer ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Emery?
First off, I just want to say, where's Paul Ainsley right now? You know? But,
Excuse me, no applause, please. There'll be time at the end. Thank you. We'll start over for you.
Sure. My name is Emery Warner, and I want to make a difference. It's time to bring some change at City Hall. And with the recent changes to the number of counselors, the person that's selected is going to be that much more important. And during this debate, I want you guys to watch me closely, listen to what I'm saying, and maybe after, come and have a conversation with me or find me on social, and I am confident that you will find in me the change that this city needs and deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, just before I get into the next portion, which is the questions, I do want to let our audience members know that we're also live streaming, and if you want to share it with your network, it's www.netwin.place/live. I'll say it one more time. It's www.netwin.place/live. So now I would like to ask the first question, and Emery, you can answer it first. This one is, if elected, what do you propose to accomplish for the people of your ward?
So growing up in city housing, experiencing poverty, marginalization, and anti-Black racism, and compiled with my decades-long career in social services, I have an in-depth understanding of the lack of opportunities and the hopelessness that comes with this lived experiences. And, sorry, I have anxiety, and once I say it, I always just feel a bit better. So, growing up with this lived experiences, I've seen firsthand that, sorry about this. You know what?
Okay.
I'm just going to, sorry about this.
That's okay.
I have clinical anxiety, and it was overwhelming in that moment, and I do apologize, but every time I express it, it always melts away and I feel better. I do apologize. I'm just gonna start from the very top, okay? Growing up in city housing, I've experienced poverty, marginalization, and anti-Black racism, and compiled with my decades-long experience working in the social services, I have an in-depth understanding of what it's like to live like this. And I've also come to know that there's a group of people that have figured out how politics and government works, and they've made it work for them. But there are far too many people who think that government doesn't work for them, or they don't understand how it works. So if I'm elected, I want to strengthen civic engagement, and I want to show people how they can connect to municipal politics. I want to make people believe again, because a lot of people just don't. Thank you. Sorry about that also.
Thank you, Emery.
Feel better now.
Yeah, thank you. Michelle.
So the residents I have spoken to have raised numerous concerns around transportation, childcare, affordable housing, and crime, among others. And should I be elected, I will advocate for an efficient and effective transit plan that will not only connect the residents of Scarborough-Guildwood to the rest of the city, but also allow for the economic growth and development of businesses in our community. But part of any effective transit plan is ensuring that everybody has access to it. So then I will encourage council to implement the fair fare system quickly, allowing those with lower and limited incomes to purchase monthly passes at a deeply discounted rate. I will also advocate for free fares for seniors during off-peak hours. I will advocate for subsidized childcare spaces. In Toronto, a family with 2 children can pay sometimes close to $4,000 a month in childcare alone, and we currently have about 12,000 children waiting for a subsidized spot. We have community members who are paying 30% of their income on shelter alone, more than sometimes. That needs to be addressed. Addressing these issues, as well as others that affect the socioeconomically disadvantaged, will have a positive thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Priyanth?
So like I said, I've been using TTC for the longest time, over a decade, and to be honest, there is no improvement in terms of TTC. I mean, I don't have to talk a lot about the inefficiencies in TTC. My first priority is to put bring the Scarborough subway. It needs to happen and unconditionally needs to happen. And along with that, we need to improve the TTC services in Scarborough. I mean, it's horrible within the Scarborough roads, and we need to improve it. And secondly, we need to diversify our recreational programs. This is very much important because Scarborough is a highly diverse neighborhood. We need to diversify recreational programs. We need more funding into our recreational programs. We need to take action on crime and violence, and this doesn't necessarily include increasing the policing. Again, we could also tackle this by increasing our recreational programs, bringing in jobs into Scarborough, and making Scarborough a better place. That will be my priority here, people.
Thank you all. Would you like to rebut this?
Yeah, that's how it works. So I
Yep.
just say I want to make a rebuttal?
Yeah,
and-
if you would like to rebut, yes,
so I
absolutely.
just give you this,
Yep.
or how does it work? So,
Sure, go ahead.
sorry. Just one comment over here is just like the increase in policing. So it's just like I understand that there is significant problems with the relationship that law enforcement has with the community. But the research is in on how to address some of these things, and increasing police, the United States has ample research available to us to look at, and there are three things: increased policing, increased community engagement that is funded by the city, and also increased surveillance. Those are the three things that end these kinds of things. And the one thing that I don't want is the same old kind of policing. If we have specialized police officers that basically have the same kind of authority, same kind of skill, but they're basically social workers out there, making community connections, and possibly not even being armed, possibly not even having the same kind of uniform, that would be helpful in keeping our community safe. I don't think that decreasing policing is going to help anything. Increasing it alone isn't going to do anything.
Thank
But
you.
if we have a specialized
Thank you, Emery. Would you like to,
Definitely. I mean,
Respond?
you are right in terms of, policing is not the only solution. There is, like I said, increasing policing is not the only thing that we have to do. We need to make sure they have the proper tools, proper protocols are put in place. I don't think a 13-year-old needs to be taught with a gun to show things. I think a 13-year-old needs school. I think a 13-year-old needs a recreational program. The 13-year-old needs to be told that, hey, you know what, there's a brighter option to choose. You don't have to go in a path where violence is, and it is the issue in Toronto today because we didn't have recreational funding. And I think increasing recreational funding, also changing the protocols, how the police engage the community, needs to be revamped. And that's why I'm here. Again, I want to emphasize on the fact it's not just increasing policing. We need to use a multi-pronged approach because I love this neighborhood and we need to take care of this neighborhood and our children to have a better future.
thank you. Now, if you rebut, then okay, you're good, all right. Now, the next question really is around I guess the question of what would the policy be or the program that you would implement on the one key ward issue that perhaps has been identified when you're knocking on doors or just in terms of your analysis of your ward. So it's really going into the layers of what policy or programs that you would like to implement if you have the opportunity to be a counselor. So we will start with Michelle.
Many residents I've spoken to have concerns about affordable housing and the maintenance and repair of existing social housing units. Housing is not a privilege, it is a right. And the people in our city should not have to choose between feeding their families or paying their rent. People should not have to sacrifice their health by living in substandard conditions. It isn't news that Toronto's facing a housing crisis. We've had this going on for many, many years. And the lack of affordable housing is a key factor in contributing to the homelessness that has been steadily increasing in our city. I have experienced the negative effects that the housing crisis has had on those with lower or limited incomes. I even had one resident tell me that her sister has been unable to find housing she could afford despite searching for 3 years. And her story is not unique. We need to drive down rental costs in our city, and there are ways to effectively do so. Subsidies for landlords, re-examining the current threshold of what is considered low income and geared to income housing, construction of affordable housing units, and incentives for builders to include those units in each of their new builds. These are just a few steps that need to be taken in order to address the current housing crisis we are facing, not just in our ward, but in all of Toronto.
Thank you, Michelle. Priyanth?
So my policy in terms of for the affordable housing crisis, which we've been talking about a lot lately, is to revamp our inclusionary zoning policy. So right now, currently, it's at 5%. Mostly, if you look at many cities in the United States, it's around 15%. What this means is for every 100 units built, 5% is dedicated to affordable housing. Now, let's say we're going to increase it to 15%. We have 15 units for every 100 units being built. Now, this isn't easy to do it. I mean, we need to have a lot of incentives put in place. We need a lot of zoning bylaws. We need to think about it. We need to, talk to the developers. It's a hard issue. I mean, the only person that can do this is someone who has a deep understanding of how inclusionary zoning policy works. And, as a student who did public policy, who's worked with various organizations, and also who knows about inclusionary zoning policies, I'm 100% confident that I could reduce the load that we have, the affordable housing crisis we have, if we could implement the inclusionary zoning policy properly.
Thank you, Priyanth. Emery, it is your time.
Thank you. So when I've been out knocking on doors, the issues that come up most frequently are generally around bylaws and things to get things done around their property. And so and if I'm elected as city council, I will try my best to be connected to the community, to make sure that I'm tackling the issues that are important to the people. But for me personally, the most important issue is this ongoing violence that's been plaguing this city. And so I'm not sure, the challenge is I'm not sure if anyone really even cares, or if they do, maybe it's just they don't really know what to do. But the reality is 82 people have been murdered. 82. Most of them are black and young. Just yesterday, not far from here, a boy was gunned down. He was way too young to be doing that for something probably completely senseless. The reason why it's the most important issue to me is that it's connected to everything else. It's connected to the lack of opportunities.
Thank you.
It's connected to the lack
Thank you,
of jobs. It's
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just before I turn it over to Dave, I just want to find out if you would like to rebut any of the comments or the statements that were made. If not, I will turn it over to Dave for the audience questions. Dave?
Thank you, Janise. So we've been collecting questions throughout the day and have a couple of really good questions that have come from the audience. And it's going to allow us to know you better as counselors. And so I'm going to try to take three questions since we only have three candidates here. I'd probably add, though, that I think our sponsor was 2300 Lawrence Avenue East, 474 Auto Parts. So just to make sure that our sponsor is happy as well. The first question has to deal with the recent proposal, even earlier this week, of tearing down the Gardiner Expressway, and particularly the eastern end of the Gardiner Expressway. And this person asking the question would like to hear your position on that. So Priyanth, why don't I hear from you first?
So, for one, I don't travel much downtown using the highway. I always use the transit, Scarborough subway, all the way to downtown. And in terms of Gardiner, every time I do, go to Mississauga or anywhere west, I have to go across the Gardiner, and it's a static highway. Anyone who uses the Gardiner knows that it needs to be improved. I think, if anything, we need to expand our highways. We need to make sure there is fluidity in there. We need to make sure there's efficiency in there. We need to improve the Gardiner Highway, not, tear it down. Make sure the city becomes even more for gridlock. It's a growing population. We need to accommodate that growing population. We need to make our roads better, and we need to improve Gardiner Express, not tear it down.
Thank you. Michelle, what's your view?
I'm actually going to take a position on this one. I am for the boulevard. I don't believe in reconstructing the Gardiner and then having to fix it every 3 or 4 years is going to be cost effective for the city in the long run. I think the boulevard would be a great way of encouraging people to use that portion of the lakeshore. And I think in the long run, it would be a lot more cost efficient.
Thank you. And Emery.
So I got to say that I saw the announcement and I looked into it, but I haven't seen all of the information. I'm only basing off what I've seen in the media. And if the plan is to tear that thing down instead of wasting money on fixing it for housing and community, I would be in full support. As far as what Jennifer Kismat said, is that it's supposed to be significantly cheaper to just tear it down and to develop and to build communities there. Right now, that area, the research has shown that if you build highways, the people will go to them. So if we start making better decisions with what we do with our communities and reduce the amount of flow that's going through there and increase community connection, community engagement, community recreation, it'll make for a more enjoyable place for everybody. I frequent down there a lot. Thank you. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Any rebuttals or any questions of your other candidates? Okay, let's move on to our next question. And this question's more of it comes right down to your ward. And the question's about the Robert Borden Technical Institute. And again, you'll be a city councillor. You'll have to be making decisions about Robert Borden and facilities and services in your ward. So what role do you think the city should be playing in turning Robert Borden into a community hub?
It's very important. I mean, for one, Scarborough-Guildwood is a very community-friendly neighborhood. It's very diverse, and I think we need to protect what we have in our community. We need to foster the sense of, everyone getting together, the unity, the sense of harmony in that community. Nowhere can you see the sense of diversity in terms of landscape, in terms of people. I mean, you could go outside of Scarborough, but within Scarborough itself, it is super diverse. And I think if we need to promote the diversity, if we need to promote the community, the sense of community that's in there, it needs to be absolutely preserved. The idea of going forward with the community hub, that's amazing, excellent. We need to keep that idea and go forward.
Thank you. And I'm just going to jump over you, Michelle, and ask Emery.
If there's an opportunity for there to be a space for people to get together, I'd be in full support. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Michelle?
I'm probably just going to repeat what my friends here have said. I am fully supportive of any sort of community center that's going to allow for seniors and our youth to have programming geared towards them. Arts is super important, and I think that having a community hub where all these things can come together would definitely be an asset to our community.
Thank you. The last question I'm going to ask, and we've been having this sort of question come up on every debate, and basically our residents are asking about, they want to know how you're going to perform as a councillor, particularly with a 25-ward model where you're going to be very busy. And so how are you going to relate to being part of your community and listening to concerns, but also kind of what sort of standard are you going to have in terms of attending committee meetings, voting on key items, and doing the work of City Hall, because you're going to be running a big corporation. So there's a lot to think about. So tell us how you're going to be performing and how you should be performing as a councillor.
Mm-hmm. So my background is in public policy. So when I took public policy, the main reason I took it was because I barely saw results in the neighborhood. I barely saw my counselor in the first place, and they're always busy, and when you don't see results, it's frustrating. That's why I chose public policy, because our city is continually being ignored. I mean, think about the Scarborough subway. How long are we going to have it delayed? How long are we going to play politics with these issues? That's why I stepped up to do this, and my background in terms of I served in the student union board, I served in different community organizations. I know how to work with people, and coming back to Scarborough, I live in Scarborough. I've been using the TTC. I don't think anyone can be better than me in terms of talking about the TTC. I've been stuck inside TTC, so I'm here to make Scarborough better. Not just here to have conversations with residents, but I believe residents want to see results, and people are frustrated when they don't see results. And I want to provide results, not just my face every day.
Good, thank you, Michelle.
The one thing I'm hearing from a lot of people, especially in the social housing complexes and apartment buildings, is that they feel disconnected from the person that is sitting on council currently. They don't feel that their issues are being addressed. They feel sometimes that they're being ignored. I'm a mother, so I am a master at multitasking. I intend to bring all the skills that I have learned in the last 23 years of being a mother to City Council. I think that we need to have someone who is able to juggle multiple tasks at the same time. I intend on holding community meetings. I want to hear from the people. As I've been going out there and talking to people, that, to me, and forming that bond with people, and they see who I am as a person, I think that is so important, and I want to continue that for the 4 years.
Thank you.
Or more.
Emery?
My favorite part about this campaign has been door knocking. I love it. I love talking with people. I love seeing what's going on. And what I find is that these professional politicians like Paul Ainsley, they forget to do the most basic thing, and that is to just listen. So I will make sure to build door knocking as part of my practice as city councilor. I will try and create innovative ways to keep the community engaged. I will try my best to have the voices of everybody heard. And I will also meet people where they're at, because that's the easiest thing. I know if my little brothers, if I want to see them, I got to go to where they are if I'm going to get their time, you know. And, you know, one thing that I really appreciate in researching different politicians, like, for example, Rob Ford, he would do the wildest things. Like, he would have fights with his closest advisors, saying, his advisor would be saying, you need to move on to something else, but he'd be screaming at them and saying, the most important thing is that someone in my ward doesn't have any running water. And he'd be out there for them.
Good, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Janise. As I do, the three of you have presented yourselves very well. You make me feel proud to be a resident of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you all for a great debate. And now it's time for our closing statements. And everybody will get 2 minutes, with the exception of Priyanth. Yes.
I use my rebuttal.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a test. Thank you. So, yes, so you will get, yes. So you'll get 1.5 minutes, and everybody else will get 2 minutes.
So everybody gets 1.5?
No, just Priyanth.
2 minutes each.
Yes. All right. So why don't we start with Emery, who will get the 1.5 minutes, and then everybody else will get 2
Are you
minutes.
ready, Brash? We haven't half yet. Okay, good.
Just give us the thumbs up when you're ready. All right, go ahead.
So in the last election, 37 of the 38 incumbents were reelected. Paul Ainsley was one of them. 70% of them were men, and only 14% of them were visible minorities. Now, for a city that prides itself on diversity, the elected representatives don't accurately represent the population. And so, when we're electing the same people, we're only going to get the same ideas that are going to generate the same outcomes. And these outcomes have already left people feeling like government doesn't work for them. And so, yeah, my name is Emery Warner, and I genuinely want to make a difference. Please, I'm not very good in front of all this stuff, but come and talk to me, and you will see that I represent the change that this city needs. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for bearing with me and my stuff. And let's make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Emery. Michelle?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah, just as the thumbs up, we'll wait for our timekeeper. Yeah. He's punching in the numbers as we speak. And he's giving us the go-ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to stand before you and claim that I have all the answers to all the issues that are urgently need to be addressed in our community. And anyone that claims to is not being honest. I am dedicated, and that's what I'm going to tell you. I'm dedicated to serving this community. I'm dedicated to listening to the needs of the members of this community and being that strong voice for them at Toronto City Council. I am dedicated to ensuring that affordable housing is available for all, and I'm dedicated to helping youth in our communities. And so much so that if I am elected, I am donating 10% of my salary to a community organization right here in Scarborough-Guildwood that helps youth through your residential and community-based programs. My kids will tell you I don't make a promise I can't keep, but I'm here to tell you I promise to do what's best for the residents of Scarborough-Guildwood. It's difficult running a campaign against an incumbent who's been sitting on Toronto Council for 12 years, especially a campaign that I'm funding on my own. But too often, our voices are silenced simply because we do not have the resources. And at times I find myself wondering, why am I doing this? Why do I even bother? But then I remember representation matters. My voice matters. Your voices matter. And I hope that the people of Scarborough-Guildwood would see the dedication and drive that I have and choose change on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you all for a great debate. And I am going to go to Priyanth. I keep wanting to leave you out. I don't know why. Sorry
It's
about
all
that.
good.
Yes.
I like to
go
shine
ahead.
bright and high sometimes, but hey, it's my opportunity. So, I want to let you all know I'm not a politician, I'm not a bureaucrat, and I'm not a corporate hack. I'm a Scarborough resident. And I continue to be a Scarborough resident because I love this place. I love Scarborough-Guildwood. The Bluffs, whether it's Markham and Eglinton, or whether it's Tuxedo Court, whether it's Guildwood, I love this neighborhood. One thing I'm always uncomfortable with is the quality of services that is being provided to us. And that is why I want to lead Scarborough, and I will lead Scarborough to a better future. We need the subway, and I don't think, I don't know how else to stress this because we've been fighting for a subway for over a decade. We need that subway. Along with that subway, we need better transit services. We need increased childcare services. We need increased funding in recreational programs. We need increased access to jobs. We need to engage more in terms of enhancing our community programs. We need to make our neighborhood much more safer, much more community friendly. We need to bring our businesses back. And let me tell you why I can do it. All my life, since I was 14 years old, I've been doing a full-time job and going to school and getting myself involved in the community. And I will continue to do it, whether it's 47 or whether it's 25, I will continue to work hard. I don't believe in just putting my face out there. Even if I couldn't put my face out there, even if I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, I want to make sure that our Scarborough residents see the results, have the subway, have more recreational programs, have jobs, have a safe neighborhood.
Wow. Thank you all. I must put in for a lively debate and a passionate debate. I think we will all agree that this was very passionately delivered. So thank you all, and thank you for taking the time. And to our audience member, I thank you.
Thank you so much for having us here.
And I just want to say in closing to our audience, thank you for coming out. And I encourage each and every one of you to make your vote count. Vote on October the 22nd. We're one of these candidates that has impressed you today, and your vote really does matter. So make sure you go out to the polls and make that check mark and vote. And I want to one more time thank our great sponsors, 747 Auto Parts, 4 locations, 1 store in Scarborough at 2300 Lawrence Avenue East. So go out and support the people that support us. Thank you.